Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host, Terry, and today we got a lot to talk about. Just want to remind you that if you want to leave a message on the fan line, use the link below, leave a voicemail, and if it's something that is appropriate for the show, I'll put it on the show and answer it there on the next episode. All right, so we got a lot to talk about because that's what happens when you don't do an NFL news for a while. The news kind of piles up. But even with that being said, you know, there's a lot going on, but I'm happy to finally get back here. So let's start off with some contract talks because I like contract talks. So the big news outside of Pat Mahomes is that you had Chris Jones and Myles Garrett, two young defenders, sign I guess long-term contract, you would say, for the NFL. So let's start with Chris Jones. First and foremost, I talked a lot about Pat Mahomes' contract on the last episode and really broke down what that really meant. And one thing I want to remind people is that while I talked about how team-friendly it is and understanding the way it's set up, it allows them to do more in the short term. Again, you have to recognize that's by design from Pat Mahomes. Like, he could have broke the bank. He could have, and I still think there were some creative things he could have asked for that really wouldn't hurt the cap. But either way, he did a team-friendly deal, not just to pay him cheaper, but so that other people could get paid, but he could also reset the market. And I think what he did with his contract setup really added some new mechanisms to the contract language. And the type of money he got is still pretty big. But anyway, so people were worried, like, okay, you can't pay a quarterback this much money and be able to keep the roster. Now, I'll remind you, the contract is an extension. They still have him for 2 years on his rookie deal. And what they basically did was they changed some of the language in the next 2 years, but his cap hit for the most part is still the same. So there really was no change to their cap for this season. So they were able to do this Chris Jones deal. And that's a big thing to point out because there's some people who are still pretty negative about the Mahomes deal. And like I said, I think it just really showed that he loves Kansas City and he trusts them and want to be there. And he, as he said, he wants to make a run at the dynasty, and this was part of it, taking less money, but doing it in a way where it could help the team. And so that's a big thing. Now, again, this isn't super important, but people got to realize how contracts work. So I'll continue to talk about them. With Chris Jones, you had a very different setup. Because when you're talking about Chris Jones versus Myles Garrett, at least from the details we got, Chris Jones didn't sign a signing bonus. So he didn't have any like free money right up front. And I talked a lot about the differences with that, with the Pat Mahomes one. And compared to Myles Garrett, who had a lot more. So what he had at the signing was this guaranteed amount of $37 million, and this new contract, which no, it wasn't an extension; it was a straight new contract. So it's $80 million. Less than half of that is guaranteed as far as guaranteed mechanisms. And so that's not a great contract. Now, what it averages out to, and you keep hearing, is like, oh, I want to be paid $20 million a year, blah, blah. You don't actually get like that. Like, if you look at the total number of the contract and you divide it by the number of years, then you can say, like, yeah, okay, you're averaging this much a year, but your base salary is not really $20 million. And especially when you're talking about just base, because that doesn't count all the guaranteed things. So really, honestly, I think they got a real good deal on Chris Jones. I know he was talking about sitting out and all this, but I think he could have got better than this. He could have got way better than this. Now, Chris Jones didn't seem like the type that was like, hey, I'm all Kansas City, let's do the dynasty. So maybe he took a cut, maybe he didn't, but when you look at it, it's not as great as I would say, because again, he didn't get any money at the signing, which is, free money basically. And really only half the contract is, not even half is guaranteed. Now, when you look at Myles Garrett's contract, he got a $21 million signing bonus. And I told you that number with Pat Mahomes to pay attention, because Pat Mahomes signed $10 million just for signing. And I believe it was Tannehill had double that. And Myles Garrett plays defensive end. He's 24 years old. He got $21 million at signing. And so that's a big chunk of change. But the unique thing about Myles Garrett's contract, or at least his extension, is that in total he has $100 million guaranteed out of a $125 million contract. So we talk a lot about Russ Wilson and Kirk Cousins doing more fully guaranteed contracts. We definitely talk about the NFL versus the NBA with guaranteed contracts. And look, you can't really compare the NBA and the NFL or the MLB, because their contracts are way better because they're guaranteed. Like the NFL, you have to get creative to get close to being guaranteed. And so that's kind of what Myles Garrett did. Like, he has a $125 million contract, but $100 million of that is in guarantees, not, at signing. But at signing, he got $21 million. And plus, in total, at his signing, he got $50 million. So I would assume that's either they guaranteed his base salaries or they guaranteed his workout bonuses or something, workout or roster bonus. They guaranteed some money, and it all totaled up to $50 million. And then there's another $50 million in guarantees and bonuses that he has to hit. So, again, it's not fully guaranteed, but most of this contract is more safe than not. And as they said, that's kind of a record with $100 million in guarantees. But people got to understand, that's not the same thing as fully guaranteed. But it's still a better contract, and I think so. And here's the thing. I know there's people that will talk about like the helmet incident and all that. Look, Myles Garrett is very possibly the best pass rusher, or edge rusher, I should say, in the league. Very possibly. I think Chandler Jones gets criminally underrated. But when you're talking about technique and pursuit, Chandler Jones, Myles Garrett definitely go up there. But then Myles Garrett adds another level with his athleticism. And so I think very possibly, again, I don't think it's definitive, but I think very possibly you could look at Myles Garrett and call him the best pass rusher in the league. And again, he's 24 years old. You have to lock him up. So we all know this. Like the better you are, the more leeway you get. That's how it goes. And so with the helmet incident, as crazy as it was, you knew they weren't going to like just, cut him or trade him. It wasn't that crazy, and he's really good. I mean, and even for the people that like the PPF stats, and they want to look at advanced stats, and I already said why I don't really trust those. But even if you look at by their rates, he's in the top tier, like top 2. And as far as all the pressure statistics and pass rushing statistics, not just the sacks, but the actual ability to get, close to the quarterback and all those things. So Myles Garrett is an absolute beast. And honestly, he's not completely there. I think even Nick Bosa is more towards his ceiling. Joey Bosa, those guys are very technically sound. I think Myles Garrett has good technique, but he's still really coming into his body. And we all know he likes playing. He goes hard. But we know he's not like 100% football guy. He has very different interests. And so I would wonder what would happen if he fully locked in and he fully reached his potential with his technique. Like, I think he's probably one of the best. So I for some people poo-pooing it, like, bro, they let it go. It blew over, and now here we are. He's got that new contract. So there we go with that. Let's move on to Madden. Let me talk about this. So I talked about this last year about the Madden ratings, and I made a post about this in my community, but I have to admit I was a little bit wrong with that because a lot of people was talking about how much players care. And what I was really saying is that, like, they don't care to the point, and I don't mean in the moment, like, oh, I'm not going to look at it. Obviously, like I said, they're going to look at it, they're going to talk about it, but I don't think they care, like, where they're at practice, like, oh, man, my speed is lower than it should be, I got to show them, or they're in the game, like, oh, I got to destroy this person so they could get my Madden rating up. Like, I don't think they care enough where it's a motivating factor. That's more my point. But I will admit I was very wrong at how much they pay attention to it in the moment. And it's a very ADD type society. People don't pay attention long. So I get in the moment they really lock in, but I know for a fact that after that, they don't care that much. Especially once you get to the season. But yes, in the moment I do like, or at least I should say I did not realize how much value they put into it. Like, I knew they looked at it, like I said, and I knew they talked about it. But to me, as a player or a coach or anything, it's like, bro, these are video game designers. Like, I'm not about to sit here and really worry about what they call me or think of me. And everybody's like, I hear them like, man, play Madden growing up. Like, I'm older than a lot of these players now. I grew up playing Madden longer than them. And still, I understand, like, it's a video game designer, bro. It's not like, it's just weird to me, like, that they sit there and like, man, I've been playing for so long, so that means I really care about what Madden says about me. I don't care. Like, if Madden, like, it doesn't matter. Like, these people don't play football. Most of, or I'm sure some have, but they don't play in the NFL. They don't coach in the NFL. They don't scout in the NFL. Like, it'd be very different if the ratings were done by scouts. That'd be interesting. Like, I don't know that scouts really have an off season, but maybe right after the draft or something, because that's when they're working on Madden anyway. If they got like a large committee of people, of scouts from different teams to come together and work on the ratings, and then I would understand, because it'd be like, bro, it's y'all job. Y'all scout college people, y'all scout pro people, y'all know the talent, y'all know the game, and y'all disrespecting me. I'm faster than that. I'm stronger than that. I would get that. But these are just straight video game designers. This not even PFF, who I don't even really trust, but still, at least they quote unquote watch film. Like, these are just video game designers. So, like, I thought, for the most part, like, it's a conversation. He's like, oh, man, they got me. Oh, they bogus. Like, da-da-da. But, like, some of these people really take disrespect on the ratings. And I think a lot of times it's just in comparison of other people. Like, bro, I'm better than him. Like, it don't really matter about the number. But some of these people really get, and it's mostly younger players, they really get into, bro, they got my speed like that, or they got my catching like that. And it's like, bro, they are game designers. But it's the generation we're in. So I have to admit, I was wrong about how much value they put into it. Like, I would have never thought an NFL player truly, genuinely felt disrespected by a Madden rating, but some of them do. Some of them do. And like I said, it's mostly younger people. But the second thing I want to say, let me just throw this out here, is my thoughts about Madden ratings. And I haven't fully thought this through, but this was what came to my mind. I think they should break it up into 3 parts. I think they should give you honestly, I would go with a grade, because it's less room to argue. When you got numbers like, man, I'm an 86, I should be an 87, like stuff like that. So I would even think about grades. But even if you want to do numbers, I think you should break it up into athletic grade, a technique grade or skill grade, and then an IQ grade. That's what they do. And so the little layout would have those 3 little parts. Because really, like, the overall, I don't know the equation or the algorithm they use to make the overall for each position, but at the end of the day, I think you're taking a lot of things into consideration. And then it's like, oh man, I'm not this good. And people only look at that one number. Like, you could have great athletic stats. You could be a great athlete and be a 68 and be like, bro, I'm not a 68. I'm a good, like, what, bro? People not faster than me. But it's like, you're only looking at that one number. You're not looking at all the individual parts that go into that number. So I think to make it easier is to make an athletic grade. So if I'm a player and I look and they're like, I'm an A plus, or not A plus. I like grades. Let's say I'm an A plus athlete. I'm a C plus tech or skills, and or let's say like a B minus in skills, but I'm a C in IQ. I think players would be more like, okay, yeah, I kind of get it. At least me, I think so. And I think it would make the game a little better. I'm not going to get too deep into Madden because I love Madden. I love talking Madden and how they can fix it. But I just think that it would make the game a little better because it would just be like, okay, like, especially when you're talking about drafting, but you could be like, okay, I got this guy who's very athletic, pretty smart, but his technique's not great. Or I got a guy who's highly skilled, but he's an average athlete and he's not smart, or he's really skilled, really smart, average athlete, whatever. I think that makes more realistic sense of how we as coaches actually treat football. So that's just my opinion of how they should do that with Madden. But the last thing I want to do, which is going to take a little bit of time, is look at the top 10 of each position. And as I said, I don't say I don't care about Madden because I play Madden. I really like Madden. But again, I don't think Madden is the definitive voice on what players are. That's my whole thing. So, but anyway, I think it's a fun conversation. Everybody wants to talk about it. So I'm going to just look at the top 10 of each position and kind of tell you my thoughts and whatnot. So I'm going to try not to talk too much about the overall, but, if you look at this, so quarterbacks, number one is Pat Mahomes at a 99. Do I think Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league? Yes. I think at this point you have to. Is he a 99? It's hard to say. I don't think so. I think some people are like, oh, once you do good, you're really highly rated until you prove otherwise. I'm more the old school mentality where you gotta prove consistently that you're highly rated before you get highly rated. So, do I have enough samples to see how he overcomes adversity over and over? Not yet, to be honest. As 2 seasons as a starter, not yet. I'm not ready to say that, but he's definitely probably the most skilled. But again, 99, that's the top, so people talk about that. Russ Wilson at number 2, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Lamar Jackson at 3, I don't agree. In the 94 Raw, I said this and I get it. People talk about Lamar. Look, you can say what you want. First of all, number 1, I don't believe that type of system is going to win or be sustainable. And you could disagree with that. That's fine. History has shown otherwise, but you could disagree with that, and that's fine. I'll have that debate. But what you can't really debate me on is his quarterback skills. Like, they can change the algorithm, like I said, but when you're just stacking up pure quarterback skills, your ability to be super fast and elusive should not rocket you up the quarterback ranks. You're not a running back. And even if you do a run heavy, offense, like as a running back, should Lamar be in the 90s? Sure. But as a quarterback, no. Like, his arm is not that. His accuracy is definitely not that. His ability to read defenses is not that. So just absolutely not. I would not say he's a 94 quarterback. Drew Brees at 4, I would have him over Lamar, definitely. I wouldn't have him over Russ or Pat. Tom Brady at 5, I would have him over Lamar. It's tough. Like, him and Brees are close. I don't think Tom is as bad as they say, but again, like, this is my flaw. You got to prove to me that you're bad now. So he didn't look great last year. He still has some of his juice, but we'll see. So I'm okay with him being under Breeze. Aaron Rodgers is next, and he's not a 90. I would probably have Aaron over Breeze. Aaron would probably be after Russ Wilson for me. And I would say they didn't have a great year, but they still went pretty far in the playoffs. So it's interesting to see them put him there. But I think his arm is still good. He's never been fast, but he's, able to escape. And the same thing people applaud Mahomes and Watson and all these people for like being able to throw on the move. Aaron created that. Extending the play, that's all Aaron Rodgers as far as the modern day. So Aaron should be higher than me. I would go Pat Mahomes, Russ Wilson, then Aaron Rodgers, then Drew Brees, then Tom Brady. So then after Aaron Rodgers, you got Matt Ryan. I guess. Matt's pretty mid-tier. I would say, I would go there. Then you got Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz. I really don't know. I tell you who's missing out of this group is Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins. And I say that because I did my advanced stats analysis on the quarterbacks. You could go back and look at it. And when you look at the top rated quarterbacks by that quarterback rating, and then you filter it to just their games against playoff teams, Derek Carr did pretty well. Dak Prescott did not do very well against playoffs teams. So we're looking at them against their best competition. And for the most part, everybody in this group, actually Matt Ryan wasn't in that group, and I don't think Tom Brady was either. But for the most part, a lot of these people did, or a lot of the people that did well were in this category. But you don't see Derek Carr, who I think his numbers against competition was better than a lot of other people, and so you got to take that into account. Carson Wentz wasn't in that group either, so it's tough. But Deshaun over Dak, I'd probably give you that. They're really close. Like, Deshaun definitely has better playmaking ability, but his like accuracy and everything is not great. Dak Prescott, he's just, I couldn't even say he's conservative because he led the league in passing yards, but yeah, it's just something there. And then Carson Wentz is really good. It's just the injury part. So I can understand that. I maybe would sneak Derek Carr in there, but Matt Ryan might be the one. I don't know. He might be the one that I'm eyeballing a little differently. So yeah, but Lamar, if I was to put, I would put Lamar. It's tough. It's tough to say. He's not a great QB per se. But I'll probably put him like right below Prescott. Actually, I might put Lamar last in this group, to be honest with you. If we're just talking about straight quarterback skills, I would probably put him last. All right, so we spent a good amount of time on that. Christian McCaffrey at running back is number 1. Don't agree with that. I think Saquon should be number 1. This whole, he was injured last year, I don't see what that has to do with his skills. He didn't have a career-threatening injury or anything. And then he ended up coming back. And so, like, Saquon. And again, we'll see. We'll see if he lost anything. But Saquon's a generational type running back. So McCaffrey with again, we don't know the algorithm. With the combination of his running ability and catching ability, maybe that makes him a 99. But if you're talking about the best running back in the game, Saquon for me. Derrick Henry is number 2. He had a great year. I don't know. I don't think he's number 2 for me. Derrick Henry is, and I've always been a fan of Derrick Henry, but there's ways to take him out. There's definitely ways. He's very straight line. Like, he's not going to make a lot happen. When he gets in the open field, he's hard to tackle. People tackle him too high because he's a linear runner. He runs straight up and so I don't get why people don't go lower on him. But there's definitely teams that show, like, if you get him early or he doesn't have a hole in the back or at the line of scrimmage, it's not great for him. So I don't think he's a great creator. I don't know if I have him number 2. Nick Chubb, I got to watch more of him. I've seen some of the highlights, but people like really flipped the switch and fell in love with him. I'm going to have to watch more to see what everybody loves. I definitely watched him coming out. I thought he was mid-tier. I know he's had some big runs, and typically if people have a big highlight or nice stats, then they'll try to just, he must be good, but you really got to look at the skill set. So I can't really say, I definitely wouldn't say I have him this high, but I'm not sure exactly how good he is. Then you got Ezekiel Elliott after Nick Chubb and Saquon after Ezekiel. Again, Saquon would be my number 1. Christian McCaffrey would be number 2. Then I would go Ezekiel Elliott. And then probably Dalvin. Actually, we'll keep going. So, because this whole list is not what I would have. So after Saquon, you got Dalvin Cook. You got Aaron Jones. You got Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara. So again, Christian McCaffrey be 2 for me. Saquon be 1. Then I'll probably have to go Ezekiel Elliott. His raw blend of talent is great. Then I would have to go Joe Mixon. People really sleep on him. I know the Bengals aren't good, but when you're talking about combination of speed, power, catching ability, he's definitely up there. Then you got to go Derrick Henry with his raw power. Then you got to go Dalvin Cook. The only issue with him is injuries. Then I go Aaron Jones because he only did it for a year. We want to see what he continues to do. Then I would go, I'd go Nick Chubb, then Josh Jacobs. And I feel like Alvin Kamara is probably better than this, but running back's a tough position. And it's a lot of really good athletes. So, that's how I would probably go, at least for me. Yeah, this running back list is kind of jumbled up for me. And this whole idea of injuries, like, I don't think that should change what type of skills they have. And if the injury rating really messes up the overall, then I guess okay. All right, so wide receiver ratings. We got Mike Thomas number 1, Hopkins number 2, Julio Jones number 3. I don't know if I agree with that. I think D-Hop is the best out of the group. I like Mike Thomas, and then Thomas is a 99. And again, I don't want to get too much overalls, but I don't think he's a maxed out receiver at all. I think he's really good at certain things, but I don't think he is the all around receiver that Hopkins or Julio Jones is. Like Mike Thomas doesn't take the top off of coverage. D-Hop and Julio can. And they can also go get the ball. Mike Thomas obviously could go get the ball too, but I don't think he can go get it like Hopkins and Julio can. And so I would definitely probably put Hopkins 1, Julio 2, and then Mike Thomas 3. Then they got Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. I would put Devontae Adams over Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's route running, as fast and as sudden as he is, his speed really dictates like how he tricks defensive backs. But Devontae Adams is a route running technician. I'd probably put him over Tyreek, and they're close in the overalls, but I probably put Devontae over Tyreek. Then they got Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, and Stephon Diggs. I would put Stephon Diggs over those guys, and then I put Mike Evans, and then I put Amari Cooper. And then they got Keenan Allen, Odell Beckham. Now, again, Odell, down season in Cleveland, does that change what type of receiver he is? Absolutely not. Out of this group, my last receiver would probably be Amari Cooper. Odell Beckham in this group probably rates above Devontae Adams, so he'd probably be at like number 4 for me. And I would honestly, if you're asking me to take Odell or Mike Thomas, I'd probably take Odell. But you can't ignore Mike Thomas producing. And again, people get nice stats. They boost them up on Madden. It's silly. But I would probably say Odell at 4 under Mike Thomas. All right, tight end ratings. We got Kittle, Kelsey, and Gronk at 1, 2, 3. The thing is, I gotta take that back because Kittle went to Iowa, monster blocker. That was his thing. He was not a receiving tight end. Travis Kelsey, monster blocker in Cincinnati. So they both can block really well. Kittle, I think, is a little better yak runner than Travis Kelsey. Kelsey, I think, they're really close on Madden, but I go Kittle, Kelsey, 1, 2. Rob Gronkowski, 95, they said blocking is a bigger boost this year. I mean, it's impossible for me to say. I'd have to put him at 10 because I haven't seen him play in a couple years. So I have no idea like what he looks like physically. So I could not safely put him at 3. Zach Ertz, Austin Hooper, Evan Ingram. I need to watch Austin Hooper more. He wasn't much coming out. He slowly built his rep up in Atlanta. I have to see how great he is, but Ertz, I would definitely go with at number 3. Evan Ingram, I would take over Austin Hooper. So I would go him at 4. Because I haven't watched anything of Hooper, to be honest with you. Jared Cook, I don't think he's that. I don't think Jared Cook is better than Greg Olsen. Mark Andrews, beneficiary of like a gimmick offense. Darren Waller's at 10. I think he's better than most of these guys. For me, it go Kittle, Kelsey, Ertz. Then I'm going Evan Ingram. I'm going Darren Waller. Then I'm going Greg Olsen. And then the rest kind of filter that way. All right, so defensive end ratings. And again, Madden needs to change to edge and interior. It's so stupid. Like, there's no question it should be changed. All right, we got Aaron Donald, number 1, Avi, 99. J.J. Watt rocketing up to a 98. I've been playing Madden. He hasn't been that high the last few years, so he's up to a 98. Yes, I don't disagree with that. His strength and his skill set is just too superior. So I definitely agree with that. Cam Jordan, Calais Campbell, Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is better than Calais Campbell or Cam Jordan. Calais Campbell, I seen him produce on the edge. Like, he's like 6'8". I still don't believe he's the edge threat that a lot of people say he is. Cam Jordan's a monster, but I'm not putting him over Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is 3 to me, then Cam Jordan. Joey Bosa's next. I would put Joey Bosa over Calais Campbell. Cameron Hayward is not a pass rusher per se. And we're not really ranking pass rushers, but overall players. So I understand him being that high. I would put Calais Campbell over Cam Hayward. Daniil Hunter, freak. I still think he's putting it together. I think that's a safe place for him. DeMarcus Lawrence and then Nick Bosa. Look, Nick Bosa, he did it his rookie year. Really good skill set. I still would put him over DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence would be my last one. And hey, I was a fan of DeMarcus coming out of college. Like, a lot of people didn't give him a shot. I was a big fan of DeMarcus. But he seems to be complacent last year. So we got to see him step that up. But yeah, I would still give Nick some time to show us what he can do. But 100% Myles Garrett is my number 3. So outside linebackers, which really are just pass rushers for the most part. And again, this should be interior edge. Khalil Mack, number 1. Von Miller, Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones is better than both of those guys. Hands down, there's not a question about it. He's a 95 this year, which is higher than he's been in a long time, but he's been vastly underrated. I think Chandler Jones is better than both those guys. Then I go Khalil Mack, Von Miller. Then you got Demario Davis, who's a true linebacker. Interesting to see him in that mix, and he has made himself pretty well. Zadarius Smith had a heck of a year, really followed it up, not just the Baltimore product. He did it in Green Bay. Then you got Kyle Van Noy, who is a Swiss Army knife, really good. TJ Watt tied with Kyle Van Noy. I think TJ Watt I would take over. I put TJ Watt at 4. I'm going to take DeMario Davis out because it's not fair to compare him. I would put TJ Watt at 4. And then I would go Zadarius Smith and then Van Noy. Darius Leonard, who has played all over a little bit, but he is more of a traditional linebacker. Shaquille Barrett, big breakout year with all the sacks. And then Preston Smith. Shout out Preston, getting some love. So I'm fine with this list for the most part. Like I said, Chandler would be my number 1. Then you talking about Mac Von Miller. Then you talking about TJ Watt. Then you talking about Van Noy. And then the rest from there. Zadarius Smith, then Van Noy. Then you talking about a mix after that. Stack linebackers, we got Bobby Wagner, number 1. No problem with that. Levante David, getting some love. Probably should be higher than a 90, but getting some love. Eric Kendricks, getting some love. Been balling, hasn't gotten love in a while. At 3, I'm fine with that. Dante Hightower plays all over at 4. Fred Warner at 5. Fred Warner, former safety combo, plays well in coverage, does his job for the 49ers. I'm not taking him over CJ Mosley. So I would switch CJ Mosley there, then Fred Warner, then Deion Jones, who is a lesser version of Fred Warner. Avery Williamson, haven't seen him play a lot, but I know the name. Roquan Smith making it there. Stack linebackers don't have high overalls this year. Then you got Bernard Kendry, so I'm not too mad at this list. I mean, again, it's not a breed of players that a lot of people know. Then cornerbacks, we got Stephon Gilmore, number 1 at a 99. Interesting. Jalen Ramsey, number 2. I'm fine with that. Sherman at 3. Jair Alexander. I'll take Jair Alexander over Sherman. Jair's not scared to tackle, and he's got better man coverage skills. I'm taking that all day. I saw Richard Sherman had a 99 play recognition. Go check the Super Bowl, bro. Come on. Richard Sherman, really good in that system, but no, he's not top 5 for me. Tre'Davious White made his all-pro, play really well again in that defensive system. I'll take him over Sherman. Casey Hayward, I mean, he's kind of lost out there in the Chargers, but he's really good. I'd probably take Sherman over him. Marlon Humphrey, still not a huge fan of him, but I know people like him. Byron Jones, we'll see what he does with a new team. Darius Slay, big play Slay, has been getting cooked a little bit recently. And then Pat Pete. I think Pat Pete, because of his age, people give him that. And the team wasn't winning all that much, but I think Pat Pete over Darius Slay for me. I still think he gives you a lot of tools there. But I would take Byron Jones over Pat Pete. I'd probably take Pat Pete over Marlon Humphrey, to be honest with you. So that's probably how I'm looking at it. Denzel Ward should probably be in this list. He's not, and that I would probably take a little not offense to, but I'd probably say he should be in here. Okay, last group, safety. Harrison Smith, number 1. He's always been a big time guy, but I don't know about recently if I would say he's number 1 status. To me, that's Jamal Adams all day. Tyrann Mathieu, number 2, has gotten some love, hasn't had that much love in a while. Devin McCourty, you can't deny how good they've been. Jamal Adams, like I said, he's my number 1. Kevin Byard at 5. Justin Simmons, Darren James, who was hurt, Eddie Jackson, Earl Thomas, Micah Hyde. Like I said, Jamal Adams is up there number 1 for me. Then from there, I'm probably going Honey Badger. Then I'm going Harrison Smith. Then I'm going Derwin James. Then you can talk about Devin McCourty, Kevin Byard, Eddie Jackson, Earl Thomas, kind of bit on the back end. Actually, I'd probably take Justin Simmons over Earl Thomas at this point. I'd probably put Earl Thomas last in this list, if I'm being honest with you. So, all right, so that's it for the Madden ratings. We went through that. Figure we do a longer episode anyway because it's been a while. So, all right, now we're going to talk about the Washington Redskins, new name to be determined. So first I want to talk about the name. Mostly I want to talk about the name, and I'll hint on the other thing real quick. So with the name, there's an interesting thing because I put out a thing in the community, and I was like, if you ever doubted the phrase money talks, just ask Dan Snyder. And I said that because Dan Snyder has been very bullish his whole entire time. He's not changing the Redskins name. And he's dug his feet in and he's beat this many times. Then you had FedEx come out, and then Pepsi, and then Nike saying, hey, we're not supporting you, all this stuff, if you don't change the name. And I'm going to tell you my initial reaction was, well, FedEx, okay, obviously somebody was like on the board or something, but they have an agreement. If you think that there aren't a bunch of brands out there that don't want their name on an NFL stadium, you have to be crazy. That was my first thought. Like, bro, like, okay, we're under contract A, so you can't breach it unless there's something in there that says you can. And if you do breach it, there's other people that want that spot. So that's not a real threat for Dan Snyder. Then you had Nike come in and say, we're not going to sell your apparel. Now, I don't even know if that's legal. I would highly doubt the NFL has a contract with Nike that allows Nike to decide which teams they're going to sell their stuff. But that's what they said. And then I guess Pepsi said they won't have their products in their stadium or something. And so, again, it's power in numbers. That's what we're seeing with everything happening in the world. And so it wasn't just one. It's the pressure now of multiple people. And then he said, we're going to change it. We're going to retire Redskins and do something different. And to me, I was like, wow, money must really talk. It was that simple. Like, it's the politics. You got to play the card. But I still just felt like, again, like with Nike, okay, I feel like the NFL's not going to allow that to happen where they just don't sell their stuff. FedEx, okay, we'll find somebody else. And then with Pepsi, okay, we'll go with Coke, whatever. Like, it wasn't a complete blackball. It was a group of power, but it wasn't a complete blackball. It still was just like, I feel like he could have weathered that storm. I'm surprised he caved that fast. And a lot of people just chalked it up to money. But then you had this scandal come out. And people were like, ramping it up. This is coming. Something's big is coming. People were getting fired before it started. And so we were all wondering. And now there's the speculation of, okay, maybe this was a PR move to say, okay, I'd rather take the hit on changing the Redskins to make me get some goodwill before I get hit with this scandal and they try to force me out of my position, and then they'll change the name anyway. So he said, I'd rather be the owner with a different name than just not be the owner and still have a different name. So that is the speculation. That's kind of where I fall. And I don't know, but it would make sense. It would make sense that you knew this negative thing was coming because you, again, like I said, or like people have said, when there's stuff like this coming, people talk and so you got your sources to let you know. But when someone comes out with something like this, they have enough witness and information. People have been talking. And so it could have very easily been him trying to get ahead of this and saying, hey, look, we're going to change the name. Similar to the Patriots announcing they're signing a Cam Newton right when they got hit with the fine. So it's very possible that's what happened. Now, I'll say this about the name for people that don't understand. Redskin is a term that came from, and I'm not an exact historian, but I've heard these stories. It comes from a term of certain Native Americans that tribes that use red paint on their face when they went to battle. And so it's very similar to the idea of red coats, with England, and this idea of like, if you get hit, they don't know if you're bleeding and stuff like that. I don't know if that's exactly the same reason why the Native Americans did it, but there are many tribes where like they use the red paint as like for battle for their warriors. And so that's where the term, like from the colonizers who saw the Native Americans, they said Redskins because they had red paint. Like there's this idea like we go black skin, white skin, yellow skin, red skin. It's not that. It's not like you've seen Native Americans. They don't look red. And so some cartoons are offensive and all that, but there's some depictions like, who did they say? I know the Seminoles and Florida State got the blessing, and then there was another team. The Blackhawks in Chicago got the blessing because those depictions aren't like caricatures. They're not cartoons. They're like actual, like when you see a Native American person and the paint on them, because that paint means something. So that red was like this idea of warriors going to war. And so that's where Redskin comes from. And then like anything, and people got to realize, like, especially nowadays, because the younger and the more we get away from it, people just hear, oh, that's a bad thing just because it's bad. But you got to know why it's bad. Things evolve. So Redskin was accurate because you saw like the red paint on their skin. And obviously Native Americans didn't call each other that, but they know that's what that signifies. And so for some people, because they've done this multiple times with Washington, and what happened is you had Dan Snyder doing focus groups, you had like news people doing focus groups, you had all types of interviews. And so what I saw through all these interviews is that in most groups, you had some groups that agreed, some groups that didn't like it, and some groups were mixed. But what you saw is there are Native Americans that take pride in that. Like I said, there's Native American tribes that have approved certain teams because they said that's an accurate depiction. That's something that makes me feel pride. That's something that makes me think of my heritage. And so obviously it's not offensive to everybody. Now, when you generalize people, you say, oh, the blacks, oh, the whites, the whiteys, the blackies, the trannies, the redskins, like that, it reduces people down to just a general concept and makes you less of a person than just a facial feature. And so that's why some people think it's disrespectful. But again, it didn't come from that per se. And so, again, I'm not advocating that they keep it or not. Like, that's up to them. But to say that, like, a lot of people, it's a racial slur. And it's not to everybody. It's really not. And you got to understand that it wasn't used as that way. But things evolve over time. And so, am I like, oh, thank God they're changing it and all that? Not really, but at the same time, I understand why people wanted it changed. And I will say one thing, it is really interesting for the people that bring up the question, why are so many of our things referencing Native American culture? Not just sports, like there's a lot of states, there's a lot of towns and cities, like a lot of stuff in our country is referencing Native American culture who we stole and robbed their land. And so that's a question you got to ask yourself if you want to think more deeply about it. But what I will say is Fred Smoot, to my knowledge, started this movement, and I back it. Red Wolves. That's his, I know a lot of people talking about red tails and everything, but Fred Smoot, former cornerback for the Washington Redskins, was talking about Red Wolves, which is indigenous to that area, the DC area. They're not extinct; they're endangered. And it was something else I forgot that was specific to that area, but it does keep that theme. Like they said, HTTR, held to the Red Wolves. You can keep the same colors and all that. You just gotta change the logo. And like he was talking about this idea of howling, bringing the howling. Like, I think that'd be cool. I love like when places, like, again, I'm a Bears fan, but I like the skull stuff. Like, I like all the little traditions. So I think if you go with that, you start that little new tradition of howling and all that, and you get you like a red wolf. I don't know if you could do it because they're endangered, but if you get you like a mascot, like, I think that'd be perfectly fine. It's an easy transition. So I'm on Team Red Wolves if they're talking about changing it, or when they end up changing it. And then lastly, with the Redskins stuff, I just want to say this real quick. Like, people need to understand, because this is something that's becoming important to me. Like, we weren't there to know what happened, but I understand some people lie sometimes. But if you haven't been through a situation of harassment or assault, then you need to like take a step back and just like have some empathy and think about it, because you don't really understand how it works. Like, we all know power and coercion, but until you're in it, you don't know. And especially, you don't even know how you'll react. Like, we all love to say what we would do in a situation. But if you haven't been in that situation, you don't know how you're going to respond. And so for people to like pick apart this whole article about the Redskins, like, some details you just can't make up. And then there's obviously people that have confirmed some of these stories. And it's not a far-fetched idea. Like, I've seen it in many places, let alone an NFL play. Like, look, if I end up working for the Bears or any NFL team, really, like, yes, I would be like, oh my God, this is like the best thing. Like, there's not many people that could get this job, especially when I'm lower on the tier. And so if things were happening, would I be scared for my job, or would I be scared to disagree or whatever? Absolutely. Like, the common thread is a lot of these people, they were told many times there's thousands of people that want your job. If you don't like it, we'll get somebody else. And that's true. And so that is coercion. And so nobody deserves it. Whether it's true or not, nobody deserves to work in that place. I see a lot of ugly comments about blaming the women and all this stuff. And it's just, it's ugly. It's ugly. And I say you really need to think about that stuff. So anyway, go to the comment section. Let me know what you think about all those things. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And thank you for listening.